Jawaharlal Nehru was born into a world of immense privilege on November 14, 1889. His birthplace was Allahabad, a city steeped in history and culture. He was the son of Motilal Nehru, a wealthy and brilliant lawyer, and Swarup Rani Thusu, a woman of gentle but firm character. Their home, Anand Bhawan, was no ordinary residence. It was a grand estate that buzzed with the intellectual and political currents of the time. It was a place where Western modernity met Indian tradition, creating a unique and cosmopolitan atmosphere. This environment of comfort and intellectual curiosity was the crucible in which Nehru's early character was forged, a world far removed from the struggles of the common Indian. The young Jawaharlal grew up in a home that was both liberal and deeply patriotic. His father, Motilal, was initially an admirer of the British, but gradually evolved into a staunch nationalist leader. This transformation deeply influenced his son. The household was a melting pot of ideas, where discussions about politics, philosophy, and the future of India were commonplace. Nehru was tutored at home by English and European governesses, giving him an early and intimate exposure to Western thought and language. He was a solitary child in many ways, finding companionship in books and his own imagination, developing a reflective and introspective nature that would define him throughout his life. This upbringing instilled in him a complex identity. He was an Indian who was, in many ways, more comfortable with English culture and language than with some native customs. Yet, this very distance gave him a unique perspective. He could see India's strengths and weaknesses with a clarity that someone entirely immersed in tradition might have missed. His father's political evolution, from a moderate to a key figure in the Indian National Congress, provided a living example of the journey many educated Indians were making. It was a journey from loyal subject of the British Empire to a passionate advocate for its dismantling. This was the path Nehru was destined to follow, but on a much grander scale. His early life, therefore, was a preparation, albeit an unconventional one, for the monumental tasks that lay ahead. The luxury and intellectual freedom of Anand Bhawan provided him with the confidence and the intellectual tools to question the very foundations of the British Raj. It shaped a leader who was not born of struggle, but chose to embrace it. He was an aristocrat who would dedicate his life to the service of the masses, a product of the empire who would become its most eloquent and determined adversary. This paradox is central to understanding the man who would go on to shape the destiny of modern India and become its first and longest-serving Prime Minister. At the age of 15, Jawaharlal was sent to England to continue his education, a path taken by many sons of the Indian elite. He first attended Harrow School, one of Britain's most prestigious public schools. Here, he was immersed in an environment that was the very heart of the empire he would later seek to overthrow. He felt like an outsider, an Indian boy among the sons of British aristocrats and administrators. This experience was profoundly formative. It sharpened his sense of national identity and made him acutely aware of the subtle and not so subtle dynamics of colonialism. His letters home from this period reveal a growing consciousness of his Indianness and a budding sense of nationalism stirring within him. Following Harrow, Nehru went to Trinity College, Cambridge, to study natural science. Cambridge was a cauldron of new ideas, where he was exposed to the intellectual currents of the early 20th century. He delved into literature, history, politics, and economics, broadening his intellectual horizons far beyond his chosen scientific subjects. He became fascinated with Fabian's socialism, a gradualist and democratic approach to social reform that deeply appealed to his rational and non-violent temperament. This exposure to socialist thought provided him with a framework for thinking about India's immense problems of poverty and inequality, shaping his future economic policies in profound and lasting ways. After Cambridge, Nehru moved to London to study law at the Inner Temple. London was the political centre of the world, and he keenly followed the developments in India and elsewhere. He participated in student debates and political discussions, further honing his understanding of global affairs. His time in England was not just an academic exercise, it was a 7-year-long immersion in a different world. He returned to India in 1912 not as a brown Englishman, as some of his contemporaries did, but as a man whose Indian identity had been reinforced by his experience abroad. He saw the strengths of Western democracy and science, but also the arrogance of empire. This Western education gave Nehru a unique and powerful voice in the nationalist movement. He could speak the language of the British, understand their mindset, and challenge them on their own intellectual ground. He was a bridge between two worlds, capable of articulating India's aspirations for freedom in a language the West could understand and respect. His travels and studies had transformed him from a privileged boy into a man with a global perspective and a clear vision. He now possessed the intellectual arsenal he needed to join the fight for his country's independence, with ideas that were a blend of Indian nationalism and Western liberal and socialist thought. Upon his return to India in 1912, Jawaharlal Nehru made a half-hearted attempt to practice law at the Allahabad High Court. He found the legal profession unfulfilling, a world of dry technicalities that seemed disconnected from the urgent reality of a nation yearning for freedom. His heart and mind were increasingly drawn to politics. The real turning point in his life came with his first meeting with Mahatma Gandhi in 1916. Gandhi's philosophy of satyagraha, or non-violent resistance, and his deep connection with the Indian masses captivated Nehru. Here was a leader who was not just talking about freedom, but was actively mobilizing millions of ordinary people to achieve it through courage and self-sacrifice. The influence of Gandhi was transformative. Nehru, the Cambridge-educated intellectual, was initially skeptical of some of Gandhi's more spiritual and traditional methods. However, he was profoundly moved by Gandhi's sincerity, his unwavering commitment to non-violence, and his ability to galvanize the entire nation. Gandhi saw in Nehru a passionate and dedicated young leader with a modern outlook who could connect with India's youth. He began to groom Nehru for leadership, creating a powerful partnership that would guide the freedom movement for decades. Under Gandhi's mentorship, Nehru traded his tailored suits for khadi, the homespun cloth that symbolized self-reliance and solidarity with the poor. While Gandhi was his political guru, Nehru's vision for India was also deeply shaped by his socialist convictions. He believed that political freedom was meaningless without economic and social justice. He traveled to Soviet Russia in 1927 and was impressed by its apparent progress in industrialization and social planning, even as he was repelled by its authoritarianism. This visit reinforced his belief that a planned economy was necessary to tackle India's deep-rooted poverty. He championed a vision for a free India that was not only democratic, but also socialist and secular, a vision that sometimes put him at odds with more conservative elements within the Indian National Congress. Nehru's journey into the heart of the freedom struggle was thus a complete personal and political metamorphosis. He left behind the comfortable life of an aristocrat to embrace a life of hardship, activism, and frequent imprisonment. He toured the villages of India, speaking to peasants and workers, gaining a first-hand understanding of their plight. This direct contact with the masses, combined with his intellectual framework shaped by Gandhi's teachings and socialist ideals, turned him into a formidable leader. He became the voice of a new generation of Indians who demanded not just independence, but a radical transformation of Indian society. Jawaharlal Nehru quickly rose through the ranks of the Indian National Congress, becoming a central figure in the struggle for independence. His commitment was tested time and again, most notably during the civil disobedience movement launched by Gandhi. Nehru wholeheartedly embraced the call for non-cooperation, leading protests, organizing boycotts of British goods, and willingly facing police batons and imprisonment. He spent a total of over 9 years in British jails, using this time for deep reflection and writing. His prison letters and books, such as Glimpses of World History and The Discovery of India, were not just personal accounts, but profound meditations on history, culture, and the idea of India itself. Nehru's leadership was formally recognized when he was elected President of the Indian National Congress for the first time in 1929. At the historic Lahore session, he presided over the declaration of Purna Swaraj, or complete independence, as the goal of the nationalist movement. This was a decisive shift from the earlier demand for dominion status. Standing before a massive crowd on the banks of the Ravi River, Nehru unfurled the new tricolour flag of India, a powerful symbol of the nation's defiant spirit. This moment cemented his position as the natural heir to Gandhi and the foremost leader of the younger, more radical wing of the Congress Party. Beyond the borders of India, Nehru was a keen internationalist. He believed that India's struggle was part of a global fight against imperialism and fascism. Long before independence, he acted as the Congress's de facto foreign minister, building relationships with nationalist movements in other Asian and African countries. He traveled across Europe in the 1930s, warning against the rise of Nazism and fascism at a time when many Western leaders were pursuing policies of appeasement. This international outlook shaped his conviction that a free India must not align itself with any power bloc, but must instead forge its own independent path on the world stage, a principle that would later become the non-aligned movement. His role was not just that of a protester, but also of a planner. As the head of the National Planning Committee set up by the Congress in 1938, Nehru began to draw up the blueprint for the economic development of a free India. He envisioned a mixed economy where the state would play a leading role in heavy industry and infrastructure, while also allowing for private enterprise. This forward-thinking approach demonstrated that the nationalist movement was not just focused on ending British rule, but was also seriously considering the complex challenges of nation-building that would follow. Nehru was not just fighting for freedom, he was actively designing the future. The final years of the freedom struggle were fraught with both triumph and tragedy. As independence became an imminent reality after World War II, the painful issue of partition loomed large. Nehru, along with the Congress leadership, reluctantly accepted the division of the subcontinent as a tragic but unavoidable price for freedom, hoping to prevent a large-scale civil war. The violence that erupted during partition, with millions displaced and hundreds of thousands killed, left a deep and lasting scar on him and the newborn nations of India and Pakistan. It was in this somber context that India awoke to life and freedom. On the midnight of August 15, 1947, as India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru addressed the Constituent Assembly with his now immortal Tryst with Destiny speech. He spoke of a pledge made long ago, now being redeemed, and the dawn of freedom. His words captured the hope, the promise, and the immense responsibility that came with independence. He was no longer a freedom fighter, but the chief architect of a new nation, tasked with guiding a diverse and impoverished country of over 350 million people towards a democratic and prosperous future. The weight of this historic moment rested heavily on his shoulders. As Prime Minister, Nehru's vision for India rested on four key pillars. The first was to build a strong parliamentary democracy based on universal adult suffrage, a bold and audacious experiment in a largely illiterate and poor society. The second was to foster a spirit of secularism, ensuring that in a country of many faiths, the state would protect all religions equally and not favor any single one. He believed this was essential for national unity. The third pillar was his economic model of a mixed economy, using state-led planning to build a modern industrial base and achieve social justice. The fourth pillar of Nehru's vision was an independent foreign policy. In a world deeply divided by the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, Nehru championed the cause of non-alignment. He argued that newly independent nations should not become pawns in the games of superpowers, but should judge each issue on its merits and maintain their freedom of action. Along with leaders like Tito of Yugoslavia and Nasser of Egypt, he co-founded the non-aligned movement, giving a collective voice to the developing world. This policy was a direct extension of his belief in India's unique civilizational role and its destiny to forge its own path in the world. In his 17 years as Prime Minister, Nehru worked tirelessly to translate his vision into concrete policies. He was a staunch Democrat who nurtured parliamentary institutions, respected the judiciary, and allowed a free and vibrant press to flourish, even when it was critical of him. He laid the foundations of India's democratic culture by holding regular and fair elections, ensuring a peaceful transfer of power, and fostering a spirit of debate and dissent. This commitment to democratic principles was perhaps his most enduring gift to India, setting it apart from many other post-colonial nations that succumbed to authoritarian rule. A cornerstone of his policy was secularism. Nehru fought relentlessly against communalism and religious fundamentalism, which he saw as the greatest threats to India's unity. He championed laws that would create a common civil identity for all Indians, regardless of their faith. His government worked to ensure the rights of religious minorities were protected, promoting the idea of unity in diversity. This was a constant battle in a country still healing from the wounds of partition. But Nehru's unwavering stand on secularism became a fundamental tenet of the Indian state, a guiding principle that continues to be debated and defended to this day. On the economic front, Nehru championed a model of a mixed economy driven by 5-year plans. He believed that rapid industrialization was key to alleviating poverty and making India self-reliant. Under his leadership, the government invested heavily in building large dams, steel plants, and heavy engineering industries, which he famously called the temples of modern India. He also laid great emphasis on scientific and technological progress, establishing a chain of premier research institutions like the Indian Institutes of Technology and a national network of scientific laboratories. This focus on building scientific temper and institutional capacity was a long-term investment in India's future. In the social sphere, Nehru's government initiated significant reforms. The most important of these was the Hindu Code Bill, a series of laws that granted Hindu women rights of inheritance, property, and divorce, challenging age-old patriarchal structures. These reforms were met with stiff opposition from conservative quarters, but Nehru pushed them through, believing they were essential for the modernization of Indian society. His policies aimed not just at political and economic change, but at a profound social transformation, seeking to create a more just, equitable, and modern society for all its citizens. Jawaharlal Nehru's personal life was deeply intertwined with his political journey. He was married to Kamala Kaul, who was also active in the freedom struggle but suffered from chronic illness and passed away in 1936. Her early death left a void in his life. His most cherished relationship was with his daughter, Indira Gandhi, whom he mentored through a series of thoughtful and educational letters from prison. These letters, later published as glimpses of world history, were his way of preparing her for a life of public service. Beyond politics, Nehru was a voracious reader and a gifted writer, and his books, including his autobiography and The Discovery of India, are considered classics of English literature. Despite his monumental achievements, Nehru's tenure was not without its failures and criticisms. His socialist-inspired economic policies were blamed by some for creating a slow-growing economy burdened by bureaucracy, often referred to as the License Raj. The unresolved Kashmir dispute with Pakistan remained a persistent source of conflict. However, the most significant setback of his premiership was the 1962 Sino-Indian War. The swift and decisive defeat at the hands of China was a shattering blow to Nehru personally and to his vision of Afro-Asian solidarity. It exposed the weaknesses in his foreign policy of non-alignment and left him a deeply disillusioned man. In his later years, Nehru's health began to decline, worn down by the immense pressures of office and the heartbreak of the China War. He suffered a stroke in early 1964, but continued to work, unwilling to step down from the post he had held since independence. On May 27, 1964, Jawaharlal Nehru passed away, leaving a nation in mourning. His birthday, November 14th, is celebrated in India as Children's Day, a tribute to his deep affection for children and his belief that they were the future of the nation. He was affectionately known as Chacha Nehru, or Uncle Nehru, by the children of India. Jawaharlal Nehru's legacy is complex and contested, but his impact on modern India is undeniable. He was a visionary who championed democracy, secularism, and science as the pillars of a new nation. He was also a leader whose policies have been criticized for their economic shortcomings and foreign policy failures. Yet, for 17 crucial years, he steered the ship of a young and fragile nation through turbulent waters, laying the institutional foundations that have allowed it to survive and thrive as the world's largest democracy. He remains the principal architect of modern India, a leader whose ideas and ideals continue to shape its destiny and inspire debate about its past and its future.